Welcome back, my fellow Python programmers, to a brand new video, and in this one we're going to be looking at dictionaries in Python. First, we're going to look at the basics of dictionary and how the syntax works. Then we're going to learn how we loop through dictionaries. We're also going to understand how nesting works. That's when we have dictionaries inside of other dictionaries, or dictionaries inside of lists, or lists inside of dictionaries. And then finally, we're going to have a mini project where you are going to test all of the knowledge that you've learned so far. So, if at any point you feel that you're enjoying the contents of this video, please make sure to slap that like button, because I need to beat the YouTube algorithm, or any algorithm that there is. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is a simple dictionary that stores information about a particular game character. It stores the name, the health, the level, if it's dead or if the character is dead, and the skills. A dictionary in Python is a collection of key value pairs wrapped in these squiggly brackets that you can see on either side. Each key, and you can see that these are the key value pairs, each key is connected to the value by a colon, and individual key value pairs are separated by commas, just like items in a list. The values can be any type that you want. For example, right here we have a string value, an integer value, another integer value, a boolean value, and then a list value. But something to keep in mind is that you cannot have two keys of the same name. They have to be different. So for example, two skills in here would not work, two health would not work, etc, etc. So the keys have to be unique, the values don't have to be anything. To get the value associated with a key, we can give the name of the dictionary that we have and then place the key inside of a pair of square brackets. So for example, the key in here is name. So in order for us to access the name, we get the game character, which is the name of our dictionaries. We open up the square brackets and we call upon that key, which is name, and then we have the following output. So we access the key name. Then we access the key health, which gives us the value 100, the value 5 of the key level, and then finally the skills. And notice that the skills are printed out just as they are, which is in the form of a list. And we'll see later on how we can loop through a dictionary and print out these skills in a better way. We can also add key value pairs to our dictionaries. As you can see in here, I want to add the key or the attribute to this game character that is the mana. And mana, if you don't know, is the amount of magic that a certain character can do. So I could have simply added the mana in here, but what if I wanted to add this mana during the gameplay or during the execution of the program? I can do it right here at this point. So as you can see right here, I didn't print out any particular key of the game character dictionary. I printed out the entire dictionary, and this is how the output looks like. We have the name, the health, the is dead, the level, and the skills. But if I move this over, you can see that now I have another attribute that is the mana, or not a new attribute, a new key value pair. It's a new attribute for our game character. Now if I do the same thing, so if I copy this line of code and I print it out in here before I make any changes, you'll see that in this case I don't have any mana at the end, and I simply end with the skills. And to add a new key value pair, all that you need to do is get the name of the dictionary, open up the brackets again, and then add a new key or the name of the key that you want inside of the square brackets, and then add the value at the end. And we can also modify values in a dictionary. So as you can see right here, I printed out before the attack and then printed out the health of the character, which was 100. And then after the attack, I assigned a new value to the health key, and it was 80. So now when I printed out the health, I have HP that is 80. So to modify a value in a dictionary, you simply give the name of the dictionary with the key in square brackets, but this time, since the key already exists in the dictionary and it's not a new key, we don't have a new key value pair being created. We are modifying the key, or we are modifying the value associated with that key. But let's actually use this in a more interesting way. So in here, what I did is I created a for loop over a range which goes from 0 to 10. So first of all, I got the game character at the health key, and then I did minus equals 10. And if you don't remember what this means, it basically means that we have something like this. And we've already covered this in a previous video. It's like saying that the game character at health is equal to the game character at health, but this time minus 10. So basically we take the game character at the key health and we remove 10 from it, and then we put it back into the game character health, basically modifying it. So every single time I loop through this for loop, I remove 10 and then I print out the health. So I start off with HP equals 90. And then I print out dead yet, and then I access the game character is dead. Now, unfortunately, in here I forgot to add a small f. So when I add the f, now I should print out false, 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 false. So you can see that the HP is still above 0, which means our character is alive. But at some point when the health is equal to 0, I'm going to set the is dead to true and print out that this character is dead. So at this point, I have HP equals 0. It doesn't print out true yet. Why? Because we print out that the character is dead before we modify this. So if I hold down Shift Alt and move the arrow keys down, and now I right click and I run, the last one should indeed be true. Now, using the keys in square brackets to retrieve the values you're interested in from a dictionary might cause one potential problem. What if the key that you're trying to get the value of doesn't actually exist? You are going to get an error. Let me show you what I mean. So what I try to do in here is I try to access the range key from the game character. And if I scroll up, you can see that there's no such key as the range, but I'm trying to get the range of Zara's attack. And as you can see right here, I get an error, which is a key error, which tells me that there is no key range. So to avoid such errors, instead of using the square brackets, I can do the following. So instead of the square brackets, I use the dot get, and inside of the get I use the range, and the dot get is a function that you can attach to any dictionary that helps you return the value for the key. If the key isn't in the dictionary, we else return a default, which is none in this case. But you can also provide the get function with a secondary optional argument that is the value that should be returned in case the key is not found. So for example, in here, if I don't find the range in the game character dictionary, I might want to return 99. So now the Zara's attack range is going to be 99 instead of none. And you can also return a string in here. Okay, so for some reason there was an error that I couldn't figure out. I just printed this out on a second line because it was getting too long, and actually I can hit enter in here. Nope, still doesn't look good. But anyways, what I did in here is I provided the get function with a secondary argument that is sorry, this character doesn't have any ranged attack, and this is exactly what I got in the output. Zara's attack range, sorry, this character doesn't have a ranged attack. So the get function is very important because it helps us avoid any errors in our program. And remember, when you get an error, your program doesn't continue executing, so it just stops. So it's better to make sure we avoid this, and also it allows you to print out something else, like for example, sorry, this character doesn't have any attacks. And finally, one of the basics of working with dictionaries is that you can actually remove a key value pair. Okay, so what I did in here, first of all, I printed out the level of the character, which is 5. Then I said that I'm removing the level data from the character, and then I use the del keyword. It's similar to the del keyword that we used when working with lists, and I removed the level from the game character, and then I printed out no level, sorry. Now, something important that might be happening to you as well as me is that whenever we're actually trying to get the keys, because these keys are of type string, I have to use them inside of double quotations or single quotations. And I've been facing a problem, and of course everybody might be facing the same. If I select all of this and I hit a single quotation, you'll see that I get an error. This is the same error I was getting in here. So if you're using single quotation marks around the entire print statement, then when you're working with this key right here inside of the dictionary, you need to use double quotation marks, and the same thing holds true right here. I'm using double quotation marks around the level, so inside of the get I need to use single quotation marks. Even in here, if I use double quotation marks, I immediately get an error. So keep that in mind when working and trying to print out the values of your dictionary keys. Okay, so that was the basics of dictionaries. Now we're going to be looking at looping through dictionaries, and it's very important that you understand how to do this properly, because most of the dictionaries that you're going to be working with have millions of key value pairs, and we have to understand and learn how we can go through all of these. So let's go ahead and take a look at looping through dictionaries. Okay, so as we've seen before, we can access every value using its keys individually. But what if you wanted to see everything stored in this dictionary? To do so, you'd need to create a loop to go through all of this dictionary. So, as you can see in here, instead of printing out every single key and value individually, I can create a for loop. I have two temporary variables. I have the key and then I have the value. And just like when we were working with the enumerate, if you don't remember the enumerate, you can go back to a previous video. The enumerate function works, or the items function right here on the game character dictionary works just like the enumerate function, where it returns a sequence of key value pairs that are unpacked into key and value temporary variable and variables, and then these temporary variables are used to print out every single key and then every single value associated with it. And if you remember, we have something called unpacking tuples, just like we are unpacking this into the key and the value. And if you don't remember, you can go back and watch the video about lists. We can also loop through only the keys if we want it. So the keys method in here, right here, attached to the game character, is useful when you don't need to work with all the values in a dictionary and you just want to loop through the keys. But actually, when it comes to dictionaries, you don't really need to use the keys method. You can simply use just the game character dictionary and it will do the same thing. But using the dot keys is more indicative of what's happening. In the future, I will simply be using the game character without the dot keys, but if you feel that using the dot keys is better for you to understand what's happening, then by all means use it. And of course, you can also loop through the values in your dictionary only. Can you think of what the function's name might be that allows you to loop through the values? So, I guess it was obvious that if you're looping through the keys in a dictionary, you'd use the keys method. If you're looping through the items, you'd use the items. And if you want to loop through the values, you'd use the dot values. So for value in the game character dot values, we print out the value. And I also wanted to print out the type of each value. So you can see right here, this is of type string, integer, integer, boolean, and finally we have of type list. So pretty simple. This is how you, or the different methods that help you loop through your dictionaries. So now that we've looked at how we can loop through dictionaries in different ways, it's time to look at how we can nest dictionaries. And when I say nest dictionaries, I mean we can have a list of dictionaries, or we can have lists inside of dictionaries, which we've already seen with the skills of our game character. And we can also have dictionaries inside of other dictionaries. This is when it comes to nesting. This is like having a dream inside of a dream, like an inception. Get it? Inception, like, I'm not gonna say because dictionary and inception don't work together if you try to combine them. But anyway, let's go ahead and look at nesting dictionaries. So first, as you can see, we have a list inside of our dictionary. So one of the values associated with one of the keys is actually a list. And this is how it gets printed out, or this is how it's seen inside of a dictionary. It's just a list, just as always. But let's say we'd like to access and print out these skills properly. What would we need to do? So, as you can see in here, basically what we did is we created a for loop, we accessed these skills from the character and we looped through these and we have the skills printed out. Now, this is where things get a little bit murky and you need to watch out for a potential problem. With the get, you're trying to access the skills, but if you don't find it, then you'd say, all right, so I would return none. For example, if I use the A capital S, because keep in mind, when you're working with strings, uppercase and lowercase are always taken into account. When I right click and I run, again, I get an error, but you're telling me, whoa, I thought that using the .get would allow me to avoid such errors. Well, this time this is not a key error because it's not about the skills not being in there, it's because we return a none, and when we try to loop over a none, it tells us that the none type object is non-iterable. So when you're trying to loop over a certain key inside of your dictionary and you might not find it, what you can do instead is provide it with an empty list. So now when you right click and you run, you simply do not get anything. And by the way, this is the symbol of an empty list. But sometimes we can also find ourselves working with a list of dictionaries. So I'm going to add 3 new characters, and by the way, if you want to have your own characters, then by all means please give them their own names, their own skills, their own levels, whatever you want. I'm going to leave this either in the comment or in the description. Alright, so what I did in here is I took my 3 characters, which were character 1, character 2, character 3, and I'm just going to add a space in between the names to make them more believable. So we have Warrior King, Shadow Rogue, and Mystic Warden. I don't know where I got these from, but anyways, we put them inside of a list, and then this list we loop over it. So we get each individual character from the characters list and we put it in char, which is an abbreviation for character, and then we print out this character, and this is what we get, the 3 individual dictionaries printed out. And finally, we might also have a dictionary inside of another dictionary. So what I did in here is kind of hard, it's kind of fascinating at the same time. First of all, we have this quest log that we've added to the character number 1. So we have the first quest, which is find the lost amulet. It's in progress. The defeat the dragon, it hasn't been started yet. And then finally we have the rescue the village, which has been completed. So what we did in here is we used, or first of all, we accessed, or we used the get to access the value of the quest log key, which is the dictionary right here. And then we apply the .items method, and remember the .items method returns a key value pair. In this case, we have the name of the quest as the key right here. So the quest, we have these keys, so this is the key, and then we have the status, which is the value associated to each key, which is the quest name. So we put the key, which is the quest, into the quest variable, the status, which is in progress, not started, completed, right here, and then we printed them out right here at the top. Let me just add a print to separate these. Right click and run, and okay, there we go. So the quests and their status of completion: find the lost amulet, it's in progress, defeat the dragon, not started, rescue the village, completed. Okay, Okay, fellow Python programmers, this was Dictionary. We've looked at the basics of Dictionary, we've looked at how we can loop through these dictionaries in various ways, and we've also seen how nested dictionaries work. Now it's time for our mini project and a small challenge for you to solve. So let's go ahead and do the challenge. So we're going to stay inside of the game handling world that we've been working in so far. So you're designing a game, the creators made some characters, and you need to analyze them and test them. If you don't know, I'm also a game developer. I also teach how to develop games on a second channel to Game Dev. And usually what happens is there's one job for the game designers, which design the game, design the characters, add certain skills, allies, health, like you're going to see right now. And then your job as a developer is to take those skills and analyze what they've added. Now, of course, when they create those skills, it's going to be in a different form, but in this case, we've simplified it and we've simply added the dictionaries. And again, the dictionaries will be in the description or in some comment. If you don't find them, please leave a comment. I will make sure to get back to you. So, first of all, you need to put the characters in a list and print them out in a dictionary form, just like we've done before. Next, you need to check if one of the characters is missing their allies. You need to print out which of your characters is missing their allies. How many skills does each character have? So you'll need to count them. Then you'll have to see what is the type of the values of each of the items and the characters. So you need to tell me what the type is. We've already done this. Which character has the highest level and the highest HP? Now this is going to be a tricky one because you'll need to use some for loops or maybe one for loop and then a few if statements. This is kind of a tricky one. Again, you don't have to do every single one, you can skip some of them. What percentage of quests has each character completed? This is also a tricky one. Add a special ability to each character. Elemental Fury, Shadow Cloak, and Battle Cry, and you can add your own to any character and you can add as many as you want. You can make them, for example, instead of just a string, you can make it into a list of special abilities. Finally, you'll need to print out the characters in an orderly manner. For example, if you're printing out the skills, they need to be indented and not separated by line. Same for the quests. So I want to see the output of a character very, very neatly printed out. So, something to keep in mind, you don't have to do all the challenge 100% completed. If I start the challenge with you and you start getting the hang of it, you can again pause the video, try to complete the challenge on your own if there was something missing, something you were not sure of. So the most important thing is to try. You have to try your best at all of these. Pause the video right now and go do the challenge. Okay, so I combined the first two challenges together. First of all, we have the three characters. Again, you can copy them. I'm going to use the small triangle in here or arrow just to close them down because we don't need to look at all the characters. As you can see, I changed the name of some of these keys just because I wanted to give you a bit of a challenge. Some of you might just wrote name, haha, and it didn't work. Why? Because it's no longer name, it's actually player name. Alright, that's enough. We have three characters. They are similar to what we had before, except for some of them have allies. One of them doesn't have allies, and we're going to find out using this if statement right here. So we put all of them in a list. We create a for loop over the characters, and if ally is not in char, and why do I use char in here? How am I checking this? Why? Because every single item inside of the characters list is a dictionary. So when I get the char, I'm getting the dictionary character, and when I check if ally is not in char, it means I'm going through the keys. So if the key allies is not there, it means that the player doesn't have any allies, and we can see right here that Shadow Rogue is missing their allies. And if we look at Shadow Rogue, which is the second character, yep, there we go, no allies. Character number 3 does have allies, and we've seen that character 1 also has allies. Alright, so let me add an extra print in here. Basically what I did in here is the same thing. I went through every single character using the for loop, and then I printed out the character's name, and then I calculated the length of the character at that specific key, which is skills. Now again, in here I'm not using the .get, but I'm 100% sure that I have skills in there. But if you're not sure if you have skills or not, then using the get is better. Basically what I'm doing is accessing the value of skills, and the value at the skills key is what? It's a list, so I get the length of that list and I print out. So right here you can see that the Mystic Warden has 5 skills, Shadow Rogue has 4, and the Warrior King has 3. So now we were asked to determine the values types. So again, I went through all the characters and then I printed out the values types of the following. Let me add 2\t's, which creates a tab. So right here, the values types of the Mystic Warden, we have a string, integer, list, which is the skills and allies, and finally a dictionary. And I did this for all the characters. You didn't have to. I just did this because the Shadow Rogue doesn't have allies, so they're missing one list in here. Okay, so as you can see in here, the highest level character is the Warrior King with a level of 10, and the highest health character is the Warrior King with a health of 150. So if we look down in here, we can see that 8, 7, and then the Warrior King has a level of 10 with a health of 150, 90, and 120. So the Warrior King has both the highest health and the highest level. So what did I do in here? First of all, I instantiated, or initialized is the better word. I initialized the highest level and the highest level character, the highest health and the highest level or the highest health character. And then I went through all the characters, and for each character I looked at the level. If the level was greater than the highest current level, which starts at 0, and of course the first character will have a higher level. So let's say we start with the Mystic Warden, which has a level 8. Okay, so the level of the Mystic Warden is 8, is greater than the highest level, so now the highest level is going to be the level of that character, and then the highest level character will be the Mystic Warden. And then when we move on to the next character, if their level is greater than the highest level, which was set by the Mystic Warden, then they have the highest levels. The highest level is set to that character that has the higher level, and then the highest level character is also set to that specific character. This is how it works. It might have been a very complicated for some of you. If you did figure it out, congratulations. If you haven't, don't worry, it was a hard one. This is a new concept and way of thinking in programming that you might not have seen before, but you should get used to this kind of getting the highest of something. And of course, the same thing holds true for the health. Just like we've done with the level, we do with the health. So in here what I did is I added these special abilities, because I'm going to be writing special abilities every single time. I just put it in a variable key and then use the key right here in between the square brackets. And remember, when we add a new key, we don't modify an existing variable, an existing key, because it's already there. It's not there to be modified, but we create a new key value pair, and now we have these. I didn't really print it out because I felt like it's not needed, but I'm just going to print out that of character number 3. When I right click and I run the Warrior King, let me expand this. We should see at the end that the Warrior King has a special ability, which is the Battle Cry. Okay, so this is how you do, or you add a new key. Okay, so in here, as you can see, the Mystic Warden completed 20% of their quests, Shadow Rogue 42.9, and Warrior King 66.7. First of all, we go through all of the characters and we initialize the completed quest, because we need to initialize this for every single new character. This is why it starts at 0. Then we go through all the statuses, and what I did is I accessed the values of each quest that we have. So for example, when I get the character, I access the quest log, I get the dictionary, that is the quest log, and then I only need to go through the values in here. We don't need to go through much more. So I go through the values, I check if the status is equal to completed, and I increase the completed quest by 1. Then at the end, I got the total number of quests by getting the length of the quest log. Yes, just like we've gotten the length of any other iterable, which iterables are dictionaries, lists, and tuples. We can also get the length of our dictionary. When we get the length of our dictionary, we get how many quests we had in total, and then we got the completion rate, which is equal to completing the quest, completed quests divided by the total quests multiplied by 100, and we printed it out. Now, something weird in here that I added that you haven't seen before, although no, I think we did cover this in a previous video, the .1f. This allows us to only have a single point after the dot. This is to avoid having an output such as this one. As you can see, 66.6666 and 42.8571. We don't need all of these, so a simple 1 after the dot. You can also have 3, for example, if you want. So if you want to be really, really precise, but I think 1 is enough. Okay, so as the last challenge, you needed to print things out in an orderly manner. Now, something in here that you really need to keep in mind. I actually printed out the skills this way because I already knew that we have a list of skills, and I already knew that we had a dictionary of skills. But what you should do usually is you should check if the skills, or if is instance of your skills dictionary. So for example, right here, if I get the following, if this is, and then we have a list, then I proceed to loop through it and do all of this. Otherwise, I also need to check if it's a dictionary, and I would do the following. But now, since we're working with dictionaries that we are very familiar with, you can avoid this. And basically, this is what an orderly mannered output should look like. I have the character, which and then the name of it, the level, health, skills, printed out very neatly, the quests, and their statuses. So this was the challenge. I hope you try to do your best. Okay, so fellow Python programmers, I hope you did the challenge, I hope you tried your best, I hope you enjoyed the contents of this video. If you did, please make sure to again smash that like button, subscribe if you enjoyed the contents of these videos in general, and to continue your Python programming journey, you need to look at while loops in our next video. And again, I'm going to move this, you're probably buzzing around. While loops, yes, let's go. Continue your Python programming journey, and subscribe and like before you move. You have to like. Come on, I've given you so much content.